On the increase. Last year's beast from the east, coupled with a record warm summer, was a snapshot into the future. Today's report shows there is a way out. Kevin Keane, BBC News.
Well, we can talk about this now with Professor David Ray from Edinburgh University, and Darrell Tyre is here. He's a member of the environmental activist group Extinction Rebellion, who hit the headlines a few weeks ago with mass climate protests in London, Edinburgh and elsewhere. David, to you first, you're part of a group of scientists who advise the government on climate policy. How ambitious is this new target?
It's very ambitious. It's going to be difficult, but it's a plan provided today which is really well thought out, well researched. We can do it. It's feasible, as your report just talked about. It's affordable, so it's going to be tough across all sectors in Scotland, but it's doable.
OK then, give us specifics. What are people's day-to-day lives going to look like by 2045 if we're meeting these targets?
Yeah, if we do it, then the air's going to be cleaner. The water's going to be cleaner. Our day-to-day lives, in terms of what we drive, our cars, they're going to be electrified. When we turn on the boiler, it's not going to be burning natural gas. It's going to be using hydrogen, or we'll have a ground source heat pump. So, yeah, a lot of the things we'll see will be hidden. I mean, in terms of our electricity, when we turn on the lights, that's going to be essentially zero carbon, so coming from renewables. So we won't see that overtly. But around the home, we'll see some changes, like I say, with our cars. And when we go out into the Scottish countryside, again, like you saw in the footage there, we're going to need to grow more trees. So to go from about 20% of Scotland is forested at the moment, and under this deep emissions cut scenario, that needs to expand to about 30%.
OK, bringing you in here then, Darrell. These are ambitious targets. That's a good thing, no?
I really don't think it's anything like ambitious enough. Frankly, I think this report is a betrayal. I think it's a report for the rich. I think it's a report that allows fossil fuel companies and the governments that support them to continue with business as usual, to continue burning oil, coal and gas for another 10 years at least. And that's just not good enough when they're gambling with our futures, our lives, our safety, and with the security of this nation and globally.
So what do you want to see?
I want to see the three demands of Extinction Rebellion, which are very simple: not net zero, but zero emissions by 2025. And 2025 is very different from 2045, which is what Scotland's target is going to be. And I think that's much more in line with what the IPCC said last year. And everyone remembers the figure of 12 years. So, you can see the difference.
All right, but we're already talking about reasonably draconian kind of impact on people's lives to meet 2045. What impact do you want to see people make? And how on earth do you expect a government to impose the punitive changes that will be needed if you're going to have it by 2025?
Well, you see, I don't accept those negative characterizations that you've put there, punitive and draconian. I think that's just not the way it needs to be. I think there's a huge will for change and a huge fear, basically, about climate change that is just below the surface. Extinction Rebellion over the last few weeks has changed the whole terms of debate. And we are now talking about a climate emergency. That couldn't have been possible before.
But people are still scared of this. Why are they still flying? I mean, we're all right putting our cans in a different bin at the moment, right? But when it actually gets to impacting your life and making it more difficult and less pleasant, people just aren't buying into it. That's the problem.
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't need to be more difficult and less pleasant. It could be much more pleasant. As we just heard, we could have cleaner air, cleaner water, better cars with almost no maintenance costs. Who doesn't want to drive an electric car with almost no maintenance costs and perhaps cleaner almost free fuel, and community-owned electricity, which would be near free as well? That sounds wonderful to me, and I think it sounds wonderful to many people. The only obstacles here are the government and the vested interests that are standing in the way.
OK, Professor Ray, this is a betrayal.
It's not at all. I mean, I've got a lot of time for the movements that we've had. So the school strikes, Extinction Rebellion, what we've seen across Scotland, across the UK, is a real groundswell of public opinion for more action on climate change. And that's really helped today in terms of, as we saw, as Anna Cunningham lodging these amendments in Parliament. Theresa May's still dithering around, but we're getting on with it already, which is great. But 2045 is a target which is compatible with the 1.5 degree target from the IPCC, so the big report that everyone will have heard about late last year. if we go for a target like 2025, the betrayal will be to the poor of this country in terms of people who are food poor, energy poor. It will exacerbate those issues. So yes, I completely get the urgency in terms of cutting emissions, but it has to be a just transition to zero emissions by 2045. 2025, to be honest, is naive in terms of the scientific basis for it.
Darryl, can I ask you a question? This is one of the things I keep hearing when I discuss climate change with people as I go about my life.
Yeah.
They say, well, it's all right, we'll do our bit, we do what we can, but it's a drop in the ocean, while China, the US, Russia, India, all these big countries are still belching out fumes. Why should we bother making these sacrifices? Why should we change our ways? It's not going to make any difference. How do you answer that?
I don't see it as a sacrifice. I see it as...
But the point still stands, though. We can do our bit, but if they're not doing their bit, it doesn't change anything.
We live in one world, and we're all going to go down together, or we're all going to make a better world. So it's a politics of not the possible, but the politics of the impossible if we say we can't do anything. We're already saying it's a climate emergency, and we're already taking what the government would like us to think is radical action. So we are willing to make big changes. We're just saying those changes are not fast enough. And I think all that we're doing here is saying what's politically feasible is no longer enough. What we need is not the politics of the possible, we need the politics of what's necessary, because that's what the science tells us.
What about plans, for instance, that came out today, Nicola Sturgeon saying going to reconsider cutting airport passenger duty? I mean, that's positive, isn't it?
I think what we need is to change airport passenger duty so we have a frequent flyer tariff, so that the more often you fly, the more you pay. I think that's much fairer, and I don't see it as in any way incompatible with social justice. I see it as much more that by achieving these goals, we get free energy, more or less. We get community energy. We get people who take more flights paying more. That has to be good for social justice. And I think green jobs and the Green New Deal are not popular for nothing with the Labour Party, because they would allow social justice and environmental justice to go hand in hand. It's just this report is just business as usual.
OK, I'm sure we will be returning to this. Thank you, Darryl Tyre and Professor David Ray in Edinburgh.
Thank you very much.